During high school, I rodeoed. I rode bulls. It was a lot of fun. I enjoyed it. I always had horses. I kept them. Now Lone Star Park is there, but I kept my horses out there and broke several horses. I took a job working for an old man, working on his ranch, which is now Grapevine, but we ran his horses, ran a cattle all the time. I broke several horses for him, and for $5 a day, But he's the greatest old man. His wife died, and he married his wife's sister. He's old Protestant, and he told me stories about the bandits, the crooks, and while their horses were fast, and they could always outrun the law. I learned a lot from him about being a man. I wouldn't say it's a favorite passage. It's really a series of Corinthians. And I love when Paul just goes through this laundry list of things that happened to him, ever since he converted. And he's going through the whole thing, but then at the end he's comparing. He said, it's kind of like, what's the world sees and what I'm experiencing is two different things. But the thing that bothered him the most, after everything he went through, was the anxiety for the church, as he was worried about the people. It just shows you where his heart was. Actually, before each semester started, or before each school year started, or a different phase in formation, a different priest was always there and gave me the best advice. Before I went into formation, when I started learning my faith, I read like 80 books on the saints. I read the Bible a couple times. I was trying to learn these things, and the priest said, forget what you think you know and let them form you. So I did. I was open-minded. And that was the best advice in the world, because a lot of guys aren't, especially my age. So I allowed myself to be formed. And then in each stage, someone told me something else. And then the last one, we were going to learn the practicum, how to celebrate the Mass and confession, especially the Mass. The priest told me, he said, anything you do outside the rubrics, you're showing off. He said, then it's about you. It's not about the Mass. It's not about the people. The people deserve to see if something happens. It can't happen if you're showing off. You have to let the Lord work through you. That was the best advice in the world. I don't know if you heard about the guy who had COVID a couple of years ago. That was me. August of 2020 is when I went in the hospital. I walked out and sometime just before Thanksgiving. Almost killed me. In fact, I found out that I flatlined more than 3 times. They had to revive me. And my daughters, when I went in the hospital, they gave everything they could. They almost stopped their lives to help me. They'd call every night. The nurse would bring in an iPad. They'd pray the rosary. And they didn't even pray at the time. They'd pray the rosary every night. Another nurse during the day shift, she was a Catholic, so she'd bring in the iPad and put it in my ear so I could hear the Mass, even though I was in a coma. It was just an incredible experience. So I was a cyclist before, and it's the only reason, that's the only reason I'm not on oxygen or anything. I have no secondary issues at all from that. Nothing. The whole thing, I think teaching people to pray, I'm most excited about, because the ones I talk to, when you ask them what their prayer life is like, it's always a rosary, which is fine, but very few have an actual relationship with Christ. If you don't have that relationship with Him, you're never going to be active. You're never going to be, that's why my feeling, it's why the new evangelization is never taken off, because there's not that relationship like Paul, like how he just took off. And what happened to me is encountering the Lord, and that makes you want to take action. You have to have that conversion. And so getting people to that point is what I look forward to the most.